Hello, welcome back to Pemberley Digital, where we will have the return of some familiar faces, both in the Lizzie Bennet Diaries and on the Look Back Diaries. Check out the Patreon for a longer version of this episode. This is a guest that I tend to have very long conversations with because she is a dear friend, very smart, says interesting things, writes great episodes. Truly, always a delight to have her. My name is Ashley Clements.
And my name is Margaret Dunlap.
And these are the Look Back Diaries, where we have The Unavoidable Mr. Lee is the name of this episode.
The Unavoidable Mr. Lee, and I'm sure I had a very clever reason for calling it that at the time, and I have to admit, I don't remember anymore what that might have been.
If this sounds like a reference to something that you recall, let us know.
Let us know. If, perhaps as we watch the episode, the context will spark something for us.
We were just going over it before going, what happens in this episode? And we don't entirely remember. So that'll be fun for us to discover together. I remember probably the least about what's going on with Bing in the Pemberley arc.
We hadn't seen Bing for a while because once he and Jane broke up, there was no really, it's not like he was going to be hanging out at the house or something like that.
Right.
And it's not like Lizzie was going to be going out of her way to talk to the guy who broke her sister's heart.
Well, and he had kind of never responded to Jane. We've established that. He's been in Los Angeles. We've had Caroline pop up at Collins & Collins, although at this point, even that was several months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we know he's not dead. But we don't really have info on what he's been up to because he's not someone that Lizzie has asked Darcy about. I mean, she just saw him for the first time in the last episode, and now more people are showing up that she maybe didn't want to talk to. I mean, maybe that's the title is just like, oh, yep, everyone who it's awkward for me to have to talk to is here. I mean, that is very true of Pemberley.
At a meta level, I think this might be an episode as Lizzie finds out some of the answers to the question of what has Bing been up to this whole time.
I do think,
as far as she knows, he blew off her sister and he's a jerk.
Right. Well, and, she knows that he was kind of influenced, but Jane also, said, like, he's an adult, he made his own decisions, and he can be held responsible for them. Let's take a look at this episode and find out what happens in it, since we don't recall.
I do remember being fond of it.
I remember that Bing shows up.
I remember Katie working out what to put on the back of your door so that when it was closed, it wasn't completely boring.
She did make it really cute.
Yes.
This entire arc is just Ashley wearing her Christmas presents as well. Like
your posh office wear.
But like my mom was very invested in the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. So like I know that some of my Christmas presents were even her going like, I thought this would look nice on Lizzie, and I just am looking at this sweater being like, yep, that's one of them. But I wear almost entirely new clothes in this arc, and it's because it was.
Well, since you were wearing your own clothes for Lizzie's wardrobe.
Wait, I'm wrong because we would have filmed this in December, but I do think my mom bought these clothes for me. I must have gone home for Thanksgiving and she went wild.
Yeah, I do remember the shouldn't he be in class at least some of the time, which is foreshadowing somebody being like,
yes,
not how you hang a lantern on something.
Like,
hey,
yes,
Big with his visitor, we gave him a visitor badge. Good work, art department.
Yes.
And this is you realizing, holy crap, he doesn't know anything.
Yeah, right? Like, oh, sure. And we're like, you are so sweet and dumb. You sweet dumb med student?
A golden retriever puppy of a human being is our Bingley.
Yeah, someone was explaining to me what, like, the himbo character is, and they were like, it's Bingley. And I was like, oh, I get it now.
He's genial, he's charming, he's genuinely a nice guy.
But he's not the brightest bulb, and he's pretty.
Yeah, he's very pretty. It was I remember talking to Sean and Laura about that relationship because I think I was writing some of their kind of wrap up episodes later on and being like,
Hmm.
they're the fairy tale relationship of this
Yeah.
story. Like it's Cinderella and Prince Charming, which is
Yep.
why you're not hitting the emotional depths in the same way, but it's still a beautiful story. It's just because those are who they are.
Yeah. Well, and here's all this like coded. She is. I mean, I feel like we do this a lot. Where like Lizzie's mad, but she's not going to say what she actually wants to say.
Because he's
But
such
she's
a
also
golden
trying to
retriever puppy.
gauge. I know, like, how do you yell at him? But she is also trying to gauge, like, I mean, him going like, "Oh, what if they are wrong?" I mean, this little wounded face. It's like, yeah, are
I
you?
I think
Mm,
this is the moment. Yeah, just like that little thing of
yeah. And this is the line. He wouldn't have been old Jane. What about new
New
Jane?
Jane. Yeah, I think that was a really weird episode because we tried not to have a lot of ones where like Lizzie has to put that kind of preview on it of like Jane maybe don't watch this episode and then past that there's the this weird thing just happened and then 20 minutes earlier like it's one of the more obviously constructed episodes which we were doing less and less of at this time in the story like the it was
I don't
getting
think we
more
ever did a Chiron like that of like
no.
20 minutes ago. I think that's the only one of those.
Yeah, and to borrow the vocabulary of the next episode, our episodes were becoming less mediated. That it just it's like here's a thing and we've captured it and it's you're looking at reality through this lens. I wrote this episode, the next, and then 81. And I think probably part of the reason I may have taken those three in a chunk is it's just really weird and messy and I think like frequently when Lizzie is going like I don't even know what to think right now it's because there's a lot of confusing stuff in the story right now and I'm not sure how to deal with it so we're just going to lay it out.
Well, and I think that as the actor playing the character, and I hope as well for the audiences, that that works, especially for a character that we're sort of presenting as this real person and in real time, that
Hmm.
it takes time to process things. And this is just very weird. This is a character who chooses to process things publicly, but it's letting the audience in to the process of what was that? That was so weird. I don't have enough information for that interaction to have completely made sense. She is pushing back on the stuff that she does know about, like, well, what if the people who you were listening to didn't actually have your
Like
best
they're
interest? And
giving you crap advice there, Bing. Like maybe
yeah,
you
like
need a spine.
what if you thought made your own choices about what you actually want in your own life? It's also an interesting choice to bring him back because this is another deviation from the book. We don't see Charles Bingley show up again until he shows back up to propose. Am I remembering that right?
I think so.
So we are already changing that in terms of more perspectives being shown. And I think that it also makes sense in our story. We do need to catch up with Bing. For him to just show, like, if he just showed up at the end when he does,
Hmm.
and we hadn't seen him at all, and he's like, I watched the videos and now I know things and I love you, we would not have seen him for so long. We
Yeah.
need this, which is also different than any other adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, right? Like, even if
Hmm.
you're watching the 6-hour miniseries, maybe it's been a couple hours since you've seen him, but it's not been 6 months.
Yeah.
And so, to bring him back, to let Lizzie soften toward
Mhm.
him a little bit more, to get to see a little bit of his journey and let him have an arc as well. And to kind of prime us for like, wait, maybe we do like Bing, even though he hurt Jane and she's moved on.
Yeah. I think also and I don't remember the details anymore, but I think this is also the section where we're really grappling with some of the ethics of what Lizzie is doing, because it's not just her life that she's putting up on the internet, it's these other people, such as Bing and Darcy, especially, who,
And Gigi as well. We'll grapple with that with her
yeah,
story.
but Gigi at least kind of knows what's going on. Like, Bing
Gigi makes
has,
a conscious choice.
yeah,
Bing has, up to this point, been clueless.
yeah. As we underscore in this episode, he still thinks that these are video messages to Charlotte, and I know it's something that
He
fans
is
noticed.
so dumb.
It's something that we
Trusting,
discussed.
naive,
Yeah. But it's like, what
innocent.
are the ethics of the fact that she is putting this up there? And obviously, there's a thing of like, well, if Lizzie didn't, we wouldn't have a show. And
Exactly.
so, but also, I think one of the things that we tried to be good about on the show was grappling with those things. Like, this is an issue of, having a vlog on the internet, and because, there were the in character social media accounts, Lizzie, the fictional Lizzie, is interacting with fans just as though she were a real vlogger of the early 2010s. You have to grapple with these things, and I think that was part of the reason we bring Bing back. Is like, we got to let this guy know, and he can't have a relationship with Jane if he never finds out about this stuff. Like,
Right, right. Like there's a level of honesty that needs to be addressed and
mhm,
will be. And it was an interesting thing to do. I mean, it made sense in a way to do it with the Pemberley arc because he's not going to show up at their house. This is the only place where she might actually run into him.
yeah, his best friend's company, he probably shows up quite a bit.
Ultimately, like this is a show that gives everybody more perspective and more insight into every character because we spend so much time with it than
Hmm.
really any other adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. And we also are, of course, missing some of the major characters that you would have gotten perspective on, like Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, in a different
Right.
type of adaptation. So we have more
Yeah.
time because we're not spending them with Mrs. Bennet's nerves
Right.
to explore some of the other characters.
When you're working in a performance medium, all of your characters kind of instantly become just a little more three-dimensional because you have an actual human being playing them. And, when Lizzie and Lydia are having a scene together, then you don't have Lizzie and her foil, you have two human beings who are having an interaction. And I think that does shape things. Given Lizzie's line that you have in this episode of, shouldn't he be in class at least some of the time? I'm confident that this episode was written after Kate Rorick, Jay Bushman, and I were all like writing at a coffee shop together. And, we were kind of talking about, like, we weren't specifically there to work on Lizzie Bennet, but we all work on the same project. Work came up. So it was like, what if he's not actually going to med school? And then it was like this, like, that's a really cool idea. Can we talk Bernie into going for it? And as it turned out, it was very easy to talk Bernie into it. He did not take a lot of convincing, but it was one of those. So, like, after that, it's kind of planting those little seeds that he needs to make some changes in his own life to give him that arc. The next episode, hypermediation and new media, is like, that was the only time I really got to write for Darcy.
That's crazy to me that that's true because it's such an iconic Darcy episode, but he's only in
He's not
like
in a ton.
he's in 9 episodes in a Q&A.
And Kate Rourke did a lot of those, and she did a really great job. But that was like, it's such a weird episode, just like on the face of it. Like, at the scripted level, I remember we were in to shoot for the day, and at one point, Bernie's like, this whole thing about talking about new media theory, does that work, Margaret? I'm like, yes, of course it'll work, Bernie, because it's confidence in the back of my head. It's like, I hope this works. And then when the two of you did it, it was like, I think one of the real joys of writing for a collaborative medium, like, I like writing prose and fiction because, like, I pick the words and the words are there and everything that's on the page is mine. But there is a certain magic to giving a scene to two really talented actors, and you two found levels that I wasn't even sure were there. Like, I knew it's like there's a lot of subtext going back in that, and then you guys just kept digging and found another couple subs under the subtext. And it was super cool to watch. And oh my god, you guys were so good in that, so because I try to give good feedback to my actors, but it's one of the most magical on-set moments I've had as a writer. And it's a scene, it's literally two people dressed up as themselves talking to each other.
Yeah, which is just a brilliant level of meta. And it's probably our sort of most like intellectual academic episode, which would
Hmm.
of course have been written by you. But it's one that also then like shows us how well matched these two very intelligent, thinky people are.
Yeah.
I use
And
the smart words too, like thinky.
thinky, yeah, no, that's the technical term. I joked at one point, it's like if they carve on my headstone, she made the word verisimilitude sexy. Like that is a fine line for the obituary when it comes out. But it's like it's weird because they're talking about new media theory, and this is like the most repressed sexual tension I have ever shoved into a scene.
And in that way, it's some of our most Regency time period appropriate tension, right? Here, these two are not repressed in the same way, but there's this inability to communicate honestly, which is also part of what the
Yeah.
entire episode is about, communication. And so,
I think they're also not yet ready to be vulnerable with each other in a way that actually talking about their feelings would require them to be. Darcy, she's got some personal work to do before he gets there, and Lizzie is like, "No, I've been burned by this guy." It's you weren't even trying to have a conversation with him. He was literally the only person in the building.
yeah, I mean, it's iconic for many ways. And I'll have the guest that you want me to have for that episode.
But we had to talk about it.
I'm glad that we got to talk about this episode that meant a
Yeah,
lot to so many people because you're a big part of the magic of that.
I'm glad to be able to hijack half of this episode to talk about the next episode. That's cool. Are there comments on this one we should look at?
Yes. Thank you, Margaret.
I like looking at comments, so I'm not going to let you forget.
Jeannie, Jose, and I feel like 80% of Bing's lines are, "Oh, hey, Lizzie, recording another video letter for Charlotte." Yes, that's accurate. We've done the math, and it's exactly 80% of his lines. Yes, I think this is an experience that many people have. Skip Plays Cello says the Lizzie videos while she's at Pemberley are my favorite to watch. Meanwhile, the videos Lydia posted at the same time are the hardest to watch. And the juxtaposition of those is actually really well done. That we see one character really thriving in a way, and we see another just and not them not being aware, and it heightens all the feelings.
Yeah, yeah, and huge kudos to both Mary Kate and Rachel Kiley who really made those video videos everything that they are.
Yes, much praise has happened for them on this show.
Very
But
good.
let's talk about you.
Okay, we'll talk about me now.
Samantha says one thing that I still really love about this after all this time is the fact that no one ever told Big about the videos. He's just blissfully ignorant when he's smack dab in the middle of it all. Yeah, it's very funny. Oh, I like this one. Thank you, Elwin Brooks says Ashley gave Lizzie the best, not gonna take your shit face. Thank you. I feel like that's a face that I know.
Neither Lizzie nor you should be accepting shit, so it's good that you have a face for it.
He's just so pleasant.
I think we're all very much in that sort of Lizzie place of I want to be annoyed with this guy, but he's just so unbearably sweet and sincere.
Yeah, well, and here, God, I miss Bing so much. His casting is spot on. Well, all the casting is, but I love him so much. Oh my God, it's true because if he was anything else, it would be harder to like him. But you can't even be mad at him for all of this.
Yeah. No, and I think the way we wrote the character was hugely influenced just by the
He's
energy that
got
Christopher
absolutely.
Sean brought to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He can be a serious idiot sometimes. How has he not figured out that what he did broke Jane's heart, or even affected Jane at all? And how has he not figured out that these aren't letters to Charlotte? Seriously?
Seriously.
It's enjoyable. How are we supposed to not like Bing when he's just so sweet? Yeah, no. And again, someone else saying Bingley is the best casting in this entire show. Look, I think the whole thing is cast very well. But yeah, Bingley's naivete and lost puppy dogness. Did I mention that he's insanely hot?
Mhm.
I mean, way hotter than Wickham or even Darcy. I mean, these are all personal preferences. We only had hotties, frankly, on the show. Those arm muscles, works of art.
In any Pemberley Digital series, it's like we were not casting a lot of unattractive
I
people.
like how we were like, let's focus on your writing. Oops, this turns out to be about Christopher Sean's handsome arms.
I mean, and we never even showed the audience his abs.
True. That one kept his shirt on.
That one did.
We could have done like a Men of Lizzie Bennett calendar and made lots of money.
Yeah. Yeah, if that had been a stretch goal on the Kickstarter.
Well, we love this stretch of episodes clearly, so we're glad that you wrote them, and we'll talk more about them at the other side of them.
Yeah. See you in a week.